privilege sitting before you and to answer your questions, and also to particularly apologize for appearing today rather than on Wednesday. I didn't know that there will be a sitting of this committee on Wednesday before I travel for COP28. And I happen to also have the privilege of being on the entourage of Mr. President, and he only left Dubai on Tuesday, and then it was simply not possible for me to leave until he leaves. And I did everything possible to leave on Wednesday to arrive into our country to engage and also to respond to other issues. And my deepest apologies. It's not our nature. This company is your creation. It's the creation of the National Assembly. The NNPC Limited today is owned 100% by the over 200 million Nigerians. The shares in this company, by the provisions of the PIA, is held by the Ministry of Petroleum Incorporated and the Ministry of Finance Incorporated on behalf of all the millions of Nigerians in the country. So we understand that this is a company owned by Nigerians, and this company, every company is answerable to its shareholders. And we also understand clearly that the National Assembly presents a great platform or representation of all of us in the country. And therefore, any invitation by the National Assembly, we see it as privilege and a matter of responsibility. As a matter of fact, we see ourselves sitting before the representatives of the shareholders of this company. We understand this very, very clearly. And we meant no disrespect of any sort for not appearing on Wednesday, and we apologize sincerely. Secondly, we understand the significance of our business to the overall well-being of our country. As we go into a prosperous 2024, there's simply no way we can discount what happens in the oil and gas industry. Because not just about direct revenues coming from the NNPC into the Federation account, that even some non-oil revenues that you will see flagged are dependent on the successful operations of the oil and gas industry. And they have very clear relationship. Many businesses depend on our ability to be productive, our ability to supply gas into the market, so the factories and industries that rely on us for their power or even for their feedstock are able to operate. So we know that this industry is very important. Every estimate that you have before you have some level of linkage with our business, including agriculture. So we know this is important. Therefore, oil production indicates efficiency and productivity in our industry, oil and gas production. And also, the market is what it is. We do not have any control over the market. It is dependent on the global demand and supply, which to a large extent, which forms the basis of all estimates that you see, including the one that before you, around pricing is seen what will be the supply, what will be the demand. And as all estimates, there are always scientific basis for those estimates. And there are expert organizations who live all their lives doing this, and we subscribe to many of these institutions and organizations that help in forecast, and we also have internal competencies to make judgments out of it. And we do not think that you will, at any point in the next 2 years, for you to see oil prices going below $70, so it's not practical. Because the supply and demand dynamics indicates that there may be continuous undersupply in the market for the next 2 years. And there are significant activities going on all over the world, also complicated by the energy transition conversations that are stifle investments in the industry to see incremental production coming in place may be unlikely, and therefore everyone assumes that supply will be challenged. Once supply is challenged and demand rises, economies are growing, our country is growing fast perhaps, and for all the records, global records, we are seen as one of the fastest growing economies in the world today. And that means that there will be sustained demand, not just in our country, but in other countries. And as long as demand doesn't meet supply, you will continue to see prices remaining where they are. And therefore, when you see the $82 oil today, as you may have seen some of the oscillations in the market in the last 2 to 3 months, you see collapse of $2 to $3, but still goes back. And therefore, the estimates that is provided to the National Assembly by Mr. President, because it's averages, so you do not look at daily prices in oil, you look at averages. And we think very strongly that these prices are realistic within 2024. And secondly, coming to production, Mr. President, may I also call your attention to the fact that when we say production for the purpose of budget estimates, yes, after, yes, I apologize. And I apologize. Slip of the mouth, not tongue. Yes, Mr. Chairman, I apologize. When we say production, we actually mean total production of both oil and condensates. Condensate, in our case, in today's market, and I'm happy I'm seeing a number of subject matters experts, even on the seat here, who are very familiar with pricing, that what we sell as condensate today in our country, but actually in very many instances are priced even higher than the crude oil, some of the grades of the crude oil. So we combine both crude oil and condensate production as the total national production. Now, would the 1.78 estimated for 2024 come to pass? Yes, we strongly believe this, that it is realistic. And we understand the OPEC curtailments. But Mr. Chairman, the OPEC curtailments is on crude oil only. It does not include condensate. And today, we make average of over 250,000 to 300,000 barrels of condensate in addition to the crude oil that we are producing. Our most recent records have shown that we're able to meet the 1.5 million barrels of liquid crude production. And therefore, when you add 250 to 300, if we take a simple reduction of 20 on the 300, you can see clearly that 1.78 million barrels per day is realizable, but not without conditions, sir.
He wants you to repeat.
What portion, sir?
When you said condensates.
Yes, sir. Okay, I understand. Yeah. Yes, currently, what is deemed condensate in our production ranges between 250,000 to 300,000 barrels per day. So it oscillates. So I'm giving you a range. So some days it can be at 300, but sometimes it can also go down to 250. That is why it depends on certain conditions. And these conditions are very clear. We do have a huge security challenge in the Niger Delta. And I'm happy to also to say that by July 2022, our total crude oil and condensate went down below 1 million barrels. Was a difficult position for our country. And a number of interventions were initiated, leading to recovery of substantial production and allowing us to say that in the last few months, we are able to reach crude oil production only of up to 1.5 million barrels per day. This perhaps, you can say, is conservative. But what we also know, Mr. Chairman, is that there's sustained intervention by Mr. President. There's a review of the structure of security intervention in the Niger Delta today. There's a new approach to containment. And this is already paying off. We are seeing substantial curtailment of the acts of vandals and oil thieves. And we know that this is crystallizing further, and that in 2024, we will have clearly a better operational environment in the Niger Delta than we have today in 2023. That is why we are confident that at the very least, and with since a number of critical production that may come up next year, the combination of this will mean that the estimate presented by Mr. President is realizable within the context of what we see today. Now, can it even be better? It is possible. But our expectation is that we will be able to meet these numbers. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. By the way, I would just also like to use this privilege to add that the NNPC Limited today, by your creation, is expected to pay taxes, royalties as any other private company in the company, like Shell or Chevron or any of these companies, and that's what we are doing. And that is why when we make estimates to the Ministry of Finance, we do not go into those parts of it. You will see our estimates coming from the provisions that will be made by those who collect taxes, that's FRS and the NUPRC. Okay. So what we do is we declare dividends. And I'm also happy to say that since July, and since the successful removal of subsidy on PMS, we're able to pay dividends to the Federation since July. And we're proudly doing this because this is the expectation of the reforms that the PIA put on the table. And to make it clearer, sir, in 2018, this company lost over $830 billion. Naira, sorry, 803 billion naira in fiscal 2018. By 2019, that losses was reduced to 1.7 billion. And by 2020, Mr. Chairman, we declared net profit after tax of 274 billion. And by 2021, close of the year, and with all the reforms that have come into place, this company declared profit after tax of 674 billion naira. We haven't published our 2022 accounts. It will be done shortly with the emplacement of our board of directors. And I can also confidently tell you that we will not just double that, we will exceed doubling the 2021 figures. Wow. And this is what reform brings. And this is what excising the NNPC and making it a commercial venture does for all of us. Today, we do not owe money to our partners. We are meeting all our cash call obligations. Despite this, we are also returning all the values that is expected from this company. Okay. And therefore, in 2024, Mr. Chairman, those estimates, including those that are coming from our dividend contributions, are real because the volumes will be realized, and we do not see prices not being realized at the level that is presented. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much.
Just simple and ordinary questions that many Nigerians ask. Mr. President, after his inauguration, boldly removed the fuel subsidy. It was a necessary and bold decision. After a month of that, we are told that over 1 trillion was saved from that. Nigerians, and even myself, is now asking, is about 5 months into, or 4 months into the removal of subsidy. The question now is, where is the money? Ordinarily, that's what Nigerians ask. And secondly, to expatiate so that Nigerians will understand, everybody supported the bold decision of Mr. President to remove the subsidy. What is going to be the benefit to Nigerians for taking this action? And now Nigerians are looking solely up to NNPC for the business, or to lead the business of petroleum product supply to them.
Speech, and I agree with you that NNPC is today 100% owned by Nigerians, and that the shares of the company is being held in trust for Nigerians by the Minister of Finance and Minister of Petroleum. Mr. GMD, I'd like to find out, when is NNPC Nigeria Limited coming to the capital market? When will it be listed in Nigerian stock? Second question, Dangote refinery, you have supplied them crude. We have also heard that a lot of the refineries are supposed to start working any moment from now. GMD, do you foresee the price of the pump price coming down in the nearest future, vis-a-vis the rumors that NNPC also wants to increase the pump price? Thank you.
Thank you very much, very distinguished colleague.
Say that distinguished senator asks, with all the, if you have a dream of having an NNPC being like its peers across the globe, and the reference to the profit levels of this company is very fundamental. And I think this is a good start to respond to all the other questions. Mr. Chairman, you have to start dreaming before you can get result of the dreams. Mr. Chairman, you are aware that reforms in the oil and gas sector started in year 2000. It wasn't delivered until 2021, 21 years after start. Petrobras and Aramco were in the situation we were in 2021, perhaps longer than 16 to 17 years. We did not have a national oil company that is a commercially driven company. It was the bold decision of this National Assembly that created the NNPC Limited, which I also referred you to the fact that in 2018, when we were a corporation, we lost 803 billion naira. So the dream started in 2021. And it's showing up, we know that we are the largest company in Africa. We understand there's huge capital in our hands. But you cannot make profit when you don't operate commercially, when you do things that you should never do, when you are not run as a business, when there is no consequence for no performance. But today, by virtue of the PIA and the Company and Allied Matters Act, actually this company can be shut down if it declares 3 years of consistent losses. This is the difference, Mr. Chairman. And this pushes us to bring the reforms on the table. Seeing the difference, because when you lose money. And you have to cover this, and we're proud that today we have gone back to a position where we can say, yes, this company is making money. It's always a process of recovery until you come to the big position that you want to be. And that is why in 2023 alone, Mr. Chairman, up to October, combination of taxes and royalties, this company contributed 4.445 trillion naira as direct revenues into the federation. In 2023 alone, up to October. Combination of taxes, royalty, and dividends. And not only that, Mr. Chairman, and this is connected clearly to the questions around subsidy removal, which my brother, distinguished Senator Dume, referred to. When you remove subsidy, where is the money? As a matter of fact, Mr. Chairman, if Mr. President didn't make that bold decision, and I've said this in very many fora, this company would have liquidated by the end of June because we were going into negative cash flow. Because the combination of our taxes and royalty obligations versus the burden of subsidy was not enough to cover this. Therefore, you have to take money from your cost savings and your other cash flows to continue to provide the subsidy. And what Mr. President did was to terminate that. So that becomes zero. And therefore, you start collecting your taxes and royalties as any company is doing. And that is why we mentioned that the result of subsidy removal, first and foremost, is saving that cost that would have been there, that you would have borrowed to do. The only way to sustain it beyond June this year was to borrow. There's no other way of doing it, because the company's cash flow can no longer carry it. As you are aware, Mr. Chairman, there was an Appropriation Act up to June that provided for 3.5 trillion naira for subsidy. Not a single dollar was given to the NNPC. There's this misunderstanding that somebody is writing check to NNPC. We did not receive a kobo throughout 2023 to carry the subsidy burden. The same thing was true in 2022. Yes, you can make budgets, you can make provisions, but you must provide cash backing, and that was not there in 2022, and it was not provided in 2023. And that is why we are taking NNPC's cash flow as a private company, and this is because the law said so. The PIS said that this company must guarantee energy security. It's a very, very broad provision that says that under any circumstance, you must do everything possible to provide energy security, and that's what we did. And we're happy that we're out of this. And it's already showing up. I do not have the numbers, but because you have restored payment of taxes and royalties and dividends, you may have seen the increased provisions at FAC since the coming of this government. I'm sure you recall this, Mr. Chairman. And that is why the boldness to make the provisions for 2024, the estimates for 2024 are born out of the fact that there are some costs, as you may know, Mr. Chairman, and in some months, the subsidy values were crossing 500 billion in a month. It was not sustainable. We can't pay for it. And of course, many things come with it. And we have said it over and over, there are two things you can't control. Once you sell your product below market, you will have issues. There will be a lot of bypasses, all manners of wrongdoings, which you cannot control anywhere you have an arbitrage environment. And that is why when the subsidy was removed, evacuation and not consumption, I'm not sure we have credible data for national consumption. I keep saying this over and over. We do not have credible data for petroleum PMS consumption in the country because we do not have the infrastructure to get this. But we know every liter of fuel that leaves leave depots. And before June 1st, we are doing up to 66.7 million liters of evacuation. This has collateral impact on the value of subsidy. And today, we are down to 45 million liters. That means reduction of 30% of whatever would have been the subsidy, and also reduction in all manners of infractions, including cross-border smuggling. Everything has gone down. And we're already seeing the market adjusting, people adjusting their consumptions, alternatives are coming up. Government is bringing up bold processes of ensuring that cheaper cooking fuel is provided, CNG, automobile fuel, and all this would not have happened if the subsidy is removed. So this is a collateral value that it has created. Does it come with pains? Yes, I agree completely. Once prices go up, it does create issues, including potential impact on inflation. But as we have also seen from current data, this first went up, but it's also coming down. And therefore, there is substantial value in the removal of subsidy. So coming back to the OPEC quota, sir. OPEC quota for Nigeria is for crude only of 1.5 million barrels per day. It does not include the condensates. And I do think that at this level, including natural declines, and also new production coming up next year, and the very fact that we make up to 250 to 300,000 barrels of condensate, we will be in comfortable levels. So I do not see any challenge with the OPEC quota. And yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes.
What we have on the appropriation bill
is crude oil and condensate, sir. And condensate, sir. There's no line for condensate in the appropriation act, sir.
So
it includes it, sir.
1780 is inclusive of the condensate.
Absolutely, sir.
Then what is the crude oil element in the 1780?
Well, I do not have that number, but it does include, it's not consequential. Let me say why it is not consequential, Mr. Chairman. because the condensate that we carry actually priced in very many instances even more expensive than the crude. For instance, Agbami, Akpo, they are selling in the market, they are niche. The market is looking for them, but they are condensates. And they are more expensive than the crude, so it's immaterial because the condensate volume, and that answered another question by a distinguished senator, what does the pricing look like? So it's very comfortable level, Mr. Kwe. It doesn't have any consequences. And there's a question around how much dividend did we declare? I said that we have started paying dividends since July, and July to November, we have paid 406 billion to the Federation account as dividend. This part?
6 billion.
Yes, sir.
That is net of excluding royalty and taxes.
No, there are no taxes. We pay taxes and royalties to FIRS and NUPS. They will declare that.
But what you have declared in July and November.
Yes, sir.
Up to October.
Yes, sir. Yes, no, July, August, September, October, November.
460 billion.
Yes, sir.
In 5 months.
Yes, sir. No, let me explain, sir. Yes, sir.
Dollars or naira? Yeah, go ahead and explain.
It will certainly not be dollars, sir. Yes, our whole entire economy is a $450 billion economy. Yes, 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 yeah. Yes, sir. You see, dividend is monthly because that would be the decision of shareholders, and the shareholders decided that we should prorate it over a period of 12 months, and you normalize it on the 13th month. This is normal, sir. So what we are giving you is on the monthly dividend that we pay to the Federation account as dividend for that period. Please recall, Mr. Chairman, that there are times, including the taxes and royalties, NNPC was doing about 120 billion naira to the Federation account. This is a massive change, Mr. Chairman. Not just about this dividend, sir. When you do.
You started paying dividend from July 2026.
Yes, sir.
23.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. If you look at 4.45 trillion versus just 120 multiplied by 12, it's just well over 1 trillion, Mr. Chairman. Yeah. This is substantial progress, Mr. Chairman.
That is about
yes, yes, sir.
3 trillion naira addition.
Precisely, sir.
Continue.
Yeah. Now, to the distinguished Abiru's question, this volume, is it net of all borrowings? Is the national production? That means the equity of everyone is taken into account, our partners, everyone takes. Despite this, you will live with this revenue level. So you look at the total, if you look at the appropriation, you will see lines for all the obligations and other people's value. So it is a percentage of the production that comes to the NNPC Limited. Then, prices of condensate, I think I have responded to this. I think we should make actually more condensate. If we can make more Agbami, it's better for us. Yeah. Now, when you do domestic refining, would this quota have any impact on domestic? The OPEC quota includes domestic refining. So it sees the total production because whatever you do domestically also impacts the global market. That means you will not go to the market to buy, and once you produce locally, it will have impact on the global price. It does include domestic production. I think I've spoken to the benefit of subsidy removal. And today, NNPC, and I get you clear, why is only NNPC importing? And today, NNPC is the sole supplier still responding to the requirements of the Petroleum Industry Act. The law said that if everyone walks away, NNPC must fill that gap. So we are merely meeting the requirement of the law. But why would people not import petroleum product? Or even if it is produced locally, today, even if it is production from domestic refinery, marketers have choices. There are risks a marketer cannot take. That is what the PIS sought and said the NNP should provide this energy security. For instance, access to FX, waiting time to get the FX, the value of the excess, the fluctuations in the FX market. All these marketers, by virtue of who they are, they will do it on daily basis. But we can't do because the law said that we cannot do this. And that is why you are seeing NNPC taking the position. They can't take those risks, and we know this is going to dissipate. It will vanish. We know substantial progress that is reached in the harmonization of the foreign exchange market. Closure is within sight. We are seeing it very, very clearly. And we know that marketers will come back and start importing with us because it is very obvious that this is already happening because of the steps that is being taken by government and Mr. President. So we know this will happen. And at the very onset, a number of companies did import petroleum product, but they cannot manage the oscillation. And whenever you have foreign exchange market stabilization, it is not common to Nigeria. In every country where you have such reforms around FX, you will have oscillations, and government must manage those oscillations until stability comes, and we're already seeing this stability within sight. So that's why we are there, and we are doing everything possible to get everyone else back on the table. What's NNPC doing to subsidy? Today, we charge no subsidy, and I repeat this, we charge no subsidy to the Federation. So it is still correct and clear that there's no burden on the Federation with respect to, so we're not making any claims on the Federation. We're still selling at the market and recovering our costs, but we have the economy of scale advantage that allows us to lose in one cargo and gain on the other, but overall, we don't lose money. And that is why there's really no subsidy in place. And questions around refinery startup. I know it's a very painful conversation. And we're not in the business of deceiving anyone, or even the Federation or Nigerians, the shareholders of this company. We are very clear that we are restoring our refineries. We are completing the rehabilitation of phase 1 of the Port Harcourt refinery. It will start in December. In the first quarter, Warri refinery will start. We never said we will start Kaduna in the first quarter. We didn't say it. What we said is that by the end of 2024, Kaduna refinery will start. This is the promise that we made. We did not say any other thing different. And when will NNPC be listed in the capital markets? For you to go to the capital market, you must be ready for the capital market. Every investor will look for return on investment and capital. And that is why you can't lose 803 billion and ask anyone to buy stake in your company. And that's why that trend has changed. And the market will see this. The law has provided that this company can be listed. The interest of this company can be listed after 24 months from the incorporation of the company. We're already approaching that phase, and this will be now the decision of shareholders to take a date. But what we are doing as management, as company, including the board of directors, is to prepare it for IPO. It means this company is becoming profitable. It has systems, it has processes, it has world-class standards, it complies with all governance requirements. Global standards, perhaps, and we probably say this, distinguished chairman, that we are the most automated enterprise in this country. And that means you have visibility of everything we are doing. Shareholders can see what we do. Our books are open, and perhaps you also may recall that we started publishing our audited financial statements of accounts, including year 2021 financial statement accounts. And we'll continue to do this. These are some of the requirements of being listed. And we know that if we go to the market today, people will buy our shares because they can see the progress, they can see the asset that we're holding. Perhaps the largest company in Africa, over $60 billion of assets in our hands, and potentially one of the fastest growing companies in our business, and people will see this benefit, and we don't see any danger. But putting a debt, I cannot tell you now, it will be decision of shareholders. And question around any potential drop in pump price of petroleum once the refineries start working. I know it's difficult to say, but refineries are not created to reduce price. And let me say this very boldly, that the 70%, Mr. Chairman, 70% of feedstock makes 70% of the operational cost of every refinery anywhere in the world. And you are paying for this crude in foreign exchange. once you do, every country, the first necessity for creating a refinery in our country, Japan has multiples of refineries. It's not an oil-producing country. The first thing it does is gives you energy security. Today, if you have any imbalances, like war, that it can happen, not in this country, and it will not happen, inshallah. Like what happened in Ukraine. It takes you 14 days to ship product from Rotterdam into our country. But once you have the refinery locally,
GMD, sorry to ask you. You
Yes.
say refinery are not created to
what I meant is that your first priority is creating energy security. And because it is close to you, cheaper labor, cheaper transportation costs can impact the pricing of petroleum products. But many of these elements are also determined by local circumstances and conditions, which is difficult to put numbers on until you start producing. So it is possible that you can have reduction in prices once you start producing locally. But what I meant is that that's not the key objective. Our happiness is that we will produce product, we will sell it at market, we will not lose money, and this refinery will pay for itself. That's the point I'm trying to make about refineries. But I think it's very important for an oil-producing country to be self-sufficient domestically so that you have access to local products and that you have energy security in our country. And we know that with other small initiatives that others are doing in partnership with us, and the restoration of our refineries and the coming on stream of the Dangote refinery, we know that in 2024, this country will become a net exporter of petroleum products. And that is the meaning of energy security. And this is one thing that we must achieve as a country. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. The next round of questions. Senator Joel, please go ahead.
The federal institutions, the commonwealth of everybody in that area. So the next question is that these continuous clashes between the locals who want to preserve this federal government infrastructure so that everybody will now have access to this wealth, and specifically other government agencies, these continuous clashes, how are you going to resolve it? Because if you don't resolve it over time, it will boomerang to something that nobody will be able to contain. So that's the only two questions I want to ask. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the opportunity.
Still, there is a form of subsidy being paid. And I want you to reconfirm to this very important committee that we don't pay subsidy in this country. That is one. Number two, going forward, I want to ask a question that most Nigerians have been asking, and it's very, very simple. Everybody have been asking, NNPC is not contributing to the Federation account. NNPC is not contributing to our reserve. Mr. MD, when will you start contributing to our reserve? Because even yesterday I had some people who were saying that where are the dollars? NNPC is not contributing. What do you see in the future? Do you see, because I was just looking at it, the reserve, even our reserve, in the last 11 months, our reserve had dropped by about $4 billion. So going forward, do you think the NNPC is in the position to rescue the country so that our reserve will go up? Thank you.
To think of how to put.
We have huge reserves of gas. And the truth of the matter is that slowly the world is moving away from oil. I want to know how you are preparing, what is your short-term, medium-term, long-term plan for moving away from oil in our economy to gas and other things. For instance, I know that a lot of the IOCs, they re-inject their gases back into the ground. And many, many years ago, there was a plan for, instead of the gas to be re-injected, if they are not interested in processing it, then maybe local Nigerians can actually process it. And in terms of vehicles, so many other things that we can do with our gas. I want to know what your plan is, not that we wake up one day and the cars are not running on petrol anymore, but we bought them. So many things are not happening. What is your plan for gas?
Talking about revenue and your strategic intervention in the foreign exchange. We've been inundated with questions on this, your proposed Project Tango, which you have opened an account with Wema Bank and Polaris Bank to run. Please, Chairman, point of order. The Senate will want to be enlightened on this issue of Project Tango so that we can talk to our citizens. As senators, we cannot be ignorant about this kind of a thing. So the Project Tango is intended to intervene in foreign exchange, and we don't really have details on it, to the extent that NNPC has opened 2 accounts in Wema Bank and Polaris Bank to run it. You are welcome.
GMD, while giving you the floor again, I want you to add these 2 questions. 1, what is your take if the Committee on Appropriation decide to increase the output projection from 1,780 to 1.8, putting into consideration that part of our 1.780 is inclusive of condensate. It's inclusive of condensate, not crude. Because OPEC quota specify crude oil, not with condensate. So what's your take? Let's assume we decided to close it from 1,780 to 1.8 million barrels. What is your take? That is 1. Number 2, there is these particular agencies of the government that have, over the years, been writing reports on oil and gas sector, putting before us some data, figures that are mind-boggling, that calls for questioning and putting on red alert as to why we should continue to investigate this sector. And I want to have your take. What is your take on the NAITI reports? Is NAITI doing their best in no ramification to stem the tides of these incessant challenges that is confronting us in the oil and gas business? And lastly, what is your position on the issue of tax credits scheme? ISO Summit. Please go ahead, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I think I can combine the question by single.
Before you go ahead, Senator Ndume's question have not been answered, and he wants you to answer his question. So you check his question with border on subsidy removal, and how effective have we put it into use, and the benefit thereon going to the future. That's his question. And the volume. So please, thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I will combine the questions from distinguished Senator Thomas and Benson. They speak to each other. And also be frank with you, Mr. Chairman. The situation we have in the Niger Delta in terms of security is a calamity. And I'm happy he spoke his mind, so let me also speak my mind. You don't have this situation anywhere else in the world. And I have the misfortune of sitting in very many fora where we are asked exactly what are you doing in your country, Mr. President, to engage non-state actors to protect critical access as the last resort for a solution to a massive challenge. It's very abnormal, sir. It's completely abnormal. It shouldn't have been, it should have happened. Talk less of even involving communities in security of assets. It is abnormal also, Mr. President. Mr. Chairman, sorry. Mr. Chairman, I didn't, withdrawn. Mr. Chairman, it's an abnormal situation, and that's why we responded abnormally. Today, and I think I can just get this for you, there are, if I remember part of it, you have over 4,800 illegal connections on our pipeline. Illegal connection. That means in some lines, within 100 kilometers of pipeline, Mr. Chairman, you will have as much as 300 insertions. That means every kilometer, you will have an insertion. And pipelines, for being what they are, if you continue this insertion, even when you seal it up, it can no longer hold the pressure that it will do. Therefore, even when you produce the oil, you cannot deliver them at the required pressure, and therefore the volume will also be less. Today, there's no lack of intelligence. And our armed forces have done great work of it. But when you have everyone involved in infractions on the pipeline, end to end, and I don't know if anyone is from Zamfara State here, what is happening to the gold that everyone rushes, exactly this is what is happening in the Niger Delta. People are coming from all parts of the country to create their own bonfire. That's what he meant, the illegal refineries, boiling pots. And that's what distinguished Senator Benson meant, that anyone can boil. It's actually boiling. Mr. Chairman, it is why we decided that we do need local capabilities to respond to this, to support the government security agencies. By rule of engagement, there are things they can do. I'm sure you have seen what happened 2-3 days ago in Kaduna. There are things the government security agencies can't do. And I will share with you what other countries did. In some countries, they resorted to very abnormal interventions, but we can't do them here, Mr. Chairman. And that is why we have a graduated response to this. We are focusing on areas that give us the most production, and we're achieving that. And that addresses the question of distinguished Senator Thomas, that what are you doing to have a sustained, we will contain this security. And we're already achieving that. Have we reached the peak? No. Now, do we need to have a re-engineering of the security architecture? That's what I mentioned earlier, that Mr. President has taken significant steps to restructure the engagement so that at the short term, we're able to engage everyone else that should be on the table. And this is what we are doing today, and these are also security engagement. I would like you to save me the trouble of speaking about it, because I will be disclosing the entire strategy around how this containment can do. But we are doing everything possible to include everyone that is required to ensure that we require sanity. But what is happening is really a colossal damage situation. And I know that the action that have been taken are resolving. And of course, what it does is create huge trouble for the environment. We haven't gotten to that. When we start facing the realities of what this has done to the environment, it's something else. But today, we are all focused on making sure that we restore the production. And we think what we are doing can get us to that position, which brings the issue of engaging the host communities. I also don't want to speak about it. There are things we are doing around how the host community members will take stake and interest in what we are doing, will see their interest in what we are doing to continue to help us in minimizing those impacts. And then the question around if NNPC is contributing to national reserves, you have to make the money to contribute to reserve. And that is why the conversation around increasing crude oil production is very, very fundamental. When you produce oil, you pay for your cost. You can't avoid it. And when you import petroleum product, you also need FX to pay for it. And thirdly, as NNPC, we are required to pay our taxes and royalties as anyone, and therefore those build-up will come from those payments. And increasing the reserve is not just about NNPC. We have partnership with all the multinational companies in this country. Every one of them, we collectively produce, and everybody pays his taxes and royalties, and you will see that build-up is coming up because the requirement for us to be able to pay our taxes and royalties has now crystallized, and you will see this improvement. Because I don't want to speak to the figures, and I will engage the Minister of Finance to see the actual figures. I do not know the actual figures of today, but I know something is changing. I do not have numbers around this. And issues around oil exploration in the frontier areas, Plateau and others, by law, the Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission is required to engage NNPC to conduct exploration activities in the frontier basin. We are doing it in all the frontier basins today, different activities, some seismic acquisitions, some aeromagnetic surveys, some drilling activities, but all ultimately to mature them to production. What we did in Plateau is acquiring seismic data. And now you have to interpret your seismic data, see the targets that you know, and then you now start talking about going to drilling. It's really a technical process, and we're hopeful and we believe that we won't start this except there's a prospect. Then, distinguished Senator Gireti asked a question about what are we preparing as the world is transiting. And let me also share information with you. Even by 2050, there will be total oil demand of up to 100 million barrels per day of oil equivalent in the energy mix. So oil and gas will not vanish. So oil will be bought for different purposes. It will be converted for different chemicals and different materials, but production of oil and gas will continue, but in a very cleaner way. And the countries that will survive this are those who are able to produce cheap, efficiently, and quickly to the market. And our plan is to make sure that we become a player in that space so that our cost becomes low and people will buy from us. This is the plan. But in terms of the transition itself, we are focused on gas because we're actually a gas country and we're not an oil country. It's actually a gas country with associated oil. But we have historically focused on oil production because producing gas takes longer time, taking it to the market, and also it has lower margin. And therefore, everybody is focused on oil that comes to the table quickly, and also it has bigger margin. And everything is changing now. Gas is the transition fuel. We are focused on creating the domestic gas infrastructure. We are already delivering them. And so that ultimately this economy will spark. Gas will be available to industries to power or for combustion. And this is already work in progress. We are focused on this, and there's a massive program of government. It's called the Decade of Gas Initiative, producing the gas, converting it, transporting it. And this is already happening. I don't know if there's a proper panel to speak about the details, but I know that our focus is on gas, both domestically and also for export. As you may be aware, the Trend 7 of the NLNG is over 50% completed. So it's going to be delivered on schedule. We're already looking at Trend 8. A number of initiatives are ongoing to bring in new LNG projects, floating, and even fixed. And there's a perfect opportunity for this because by virtue of the PIA, the fiscal terms are good. The environment is good. And that is why people are ready to put their money into our country, but we must also resolve the issue of security because that's a key factor in business decision-making in our country. And it has a premium. Even those who agree to come would put a premium on it. And as we're able to resolve the issues of security in Niger Delta, you'll see a different environment coming up. And equity on the JV, I know Senator Benson is referring to the joint venture. When you say 60-40, yes, we have maximum of 60% in some JVs and 55% in some of the joint ventures. And it doesn't mean that you sell all the 60% and put it into your pocket. What it means is that when you produce, you contribute cash, all of us, to the JV, either by borrowing or by any means. When the production comes, you take 60% of the production, you use it to pay your cash, your contribution of the cost, and also pay your taxes and royalties, and the remainder becomes your profit, which is what I was talking about, paying dividend from our production. It's different for every company. Some businesses have higher costs, some have lower costs, but in a total basket, this is really what works out. It doesn't mean that you take 60% of all the revenues into use. And the legal framework for the PSC contract, that's the private security contracts in the Delta, distinguished Senator, it's a commercial contract. We are not dealing with individual. We are dealing with corporate organizations. We have a clear scope of work, a method of invoicing, payment, deliveries, targets. That's in a typical contract because we're a private company. We can't do anything that is illegal. And what we have done is a puppet contract between us and the private sector. So we do not need any further framework to support this because it's already a commercial security contract arrangement, which has been, there are many security contracts across our assets, and we don't see any challenge with this. And the question around why do we adjust the production to 1.8 million, I still advise that we stay in the submissions by Mr. President. And coming back to 90 reports, and all the issues that we hear out.
Do we still pay subsidy?
Yes, I'll come back to it. I will not avoid any question. Yes. The ones I can't answer, I will say it. Yes. Yes, distinguished. EITI report or 90 reports. By law, 90 is required to submit their reports to the National Assembly. And they do. And you see a number of issues historically around NNPC took $11 billion, $13 billion. You see all these figures in the media. And let me share this with you. You cannot have subsidy regime. You make appropriation as a country. You provided for subsidy 2022, 2023. You do not provide the cash. I'm running a business on your behalf, and you expect me to pay you all the money for the subsidy and still keep the subsidy. And this is really what it is. So when 90 reports come up, they will say NNPC did not remit taxes of X amount. That's correct. So if you don't know, why didn't you do it? Because the owners of the business who are supposed to refund you subsidy do not have the money to refund you the subsidy. And therefore, the reports, when they are viewed carefully, there is absolutely no obligation from NNPC. We held back nothing because you didn't pay your bill. And this is really what it is. That's why you will all see, they may be correct. They say, well, NNPC did not remit. Yes, it's correct. But they won't add the other part of it that NNPC did not receive any payment for subsidy. So what you hear all over that marketing companies receive subsidy, there's no subsidy relationship between us and any oil marketing company. So what we do is that I have fiscal obligations for taxes and royalties. You ask me to buy product and come and sell below the market. You must take the pains that comes with it. And if you can't write me a check, I have your money, I will keep it. That's really what happened. And that's the reporting part of it that doesn't come. I think it's very good to be brutally frank. And this is really, really what it is. So you can't, and I always use this example, you can't smoke cigarette and ask for the smoke. That is really what it is. And what's my position on the tax credit scheme? Mr. Chairman, the tax credit scheme was a child of necessity. As you know, our roads are hardly delivered. And there are road constructions, we are all from Nigeria, we all know, in all our communities. There are road projects that have lasted for 15 to 20 years, not delivered. And I can also tell you from experience, when I was recruited by NNPC in 1991, I know that there was a plan to have a dual carriageway from Benin to Kano. We know it is not there today. This is 33 years. And the key issue, and this is true of very many other roads, I don't want to mention them. For us, we have a responsibility to deliver product to all nooks and crannies of this country by requirement of the law. And sometimes, and I'm sure my brother, Distinguished Senator Ifeanyi will bail me out, that in some places in Niger State, trucks can stay for 1 week without crossing certain points. A truck will leave Lagos to Maiduguri, perhaps, if you have good roads, within 24 hours, max 48 hours, you should be in Maiduguri. But sometimes trucks spend up to 10 days leaving Lagos to Maiduguri. And the key reason is the road condition of the road. We know that we cannot deliver our responsibility for energy security if we don't address the road question. And that's how NNPC saw the business opportunity to use the Executive Order 7 to provide funding for these roads so that at the end we'll deliver on our mandate for energy security and also would have contributed to providing infrastructure in our country. That's where we came in. Now, should this be continuously done? So as long as you do not have a clear plan of financing, it will be a good thing to get private entities like us to continue to fund road projects. Now, what I see today is a substantial development, and I'm not speaking for NNPC, that's why I say how I see it, I'm talking personally. I'm seeing substantial progress in our ability to pay our bills. With the Appropriation Act 2024, which is a bill of 2024 before you, and the projections for revenue, I know that the plans appear very, very realistic, which means that when contractors go to site, they will not demobilize. And therefore, once we have clarity around ability to pay, you may not require the tax credit scheme. Now, back to the question around whether there is subsidy. I think I don't want to repeat myself. I said that we do not charge any subsidy to the Federation. And I will engage the Honorable Minister of Finance. I do
Are
not
you
know
sure? Honorable GMD, is that the true position?
Is the other way of saying is, am I lying?
No, I will not say you are lying. We are only trying to affirm and reconfirm.
Thank you very much. That's what I meant. Okay. There is no charge to the Federation account of subsidy sums from the NNPC Limited.
Correct.
Now, Project Tango, I crave your indulgence, Chairman. I would like to take this offline. It is a commercial conversation. I would like to brief the distinguished Senate in private. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Distinguished colleague, I think
to the byproduct of petroleum processing. Once you refine petroleum, you have all gamut of products, LPG, lubes, everything like kerosene, DPK, ATK. You sell all of them. So, distinguished Senator, we sell all of them. We will sell all of them. So nothing will be wasted. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, distinguished colleague. GMD of NNPC have been able to do justice to all our questions, most especially as it affects the oil and gas sector. And we want to strongly believe that he has alluded to the fact that all statistics, all data presented by the President in the appropriation bill currently before the National Assembly are all achievable. With the production outputs, alluding to the fact that there are reasonable security in the Niger Delta that can guarantee the production output of 1780, which is inclusive of the crude and the condensate. He has also alluded to the fact that the benchmark as proposed by the executives is achievable. And also to all other sundry issues that have been raised by my colleagues, he has provided answers and justification to each and every one of the questions. On that note, the Group Managing Director of NNPC and his team, we want to thank you for coming and providing answers to questions that are bordering the Senate of Federal Republic of Nigeria, the Appropriation Committee, about or relating to the appropriation bill submitted before us by the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. We can reasonably say that, yes, we have an informed decision and position concerning that particular document as it affects our revenue relating to the oil and gas sector. We want to thank you for coming, spending quality time with us. You can leave us for now. Good afternoon. Motion for adjournment. I move. Moved by Senator Zunazo and seconded by Senator Adera Mudu. The committee stands adjourned sine die.